Hello, Flourish Girls. We are here today to have great conversation about our current topic, calling. I have a special guest today, somebody very special for passion. And we're going to actually unpack a little bit this theme that we've been discussing, calling, and hear a little bit about Kristen's story and how her calling unfolded and also what she's doing today, which is really special. So this is Kristen Franklin. She is a great friend of Passion. She is a door holder at Passion conferences for how long, Kristen?
Gosh, I want to say one day 2000, so about 21, 22 years.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Kristen is a wife. She's a mom to three boys, and she has worked in a role for a long time. And recently, she has transitioned. So I'm really excited, Kristen, to hear your story and to hear how God has intersected in your life and how you got to be so alive in your calling. Do you mind sharing a little bit with us how about your story and your calling and everything?
Yeah, I would love to. A few weeks ago, we had a staff meeting and I heard a quote that said, "It's not my business to succeed, but to do right. And when we do, the rest lies with God." It's a C.S. Lewis quote. And it just stopped me in my tracks because you and I had just had a conversation about us having this call, and it made me realize that that's what I was kind of nervous about right now. And I had just started this new job after being in the same one for over 16 years. A couple of years ago, I actually thought I was done. I thought that God was done with me. I thought he no longer had a use for me. I was surrounded by all these little young whippersnappers who had all this passion that I felt I no longer had. And they seemed so sure of where they were going. And so here I was, this 42-year-old woman who had just found out she was pregnant with her third boy. And that's a story for another time. But, you know, I didn't know what was going on in my world. And I just kind of felt washed up and used up and just like there was nothing left. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up. So I felt like something was off, but I didn't know what it was. And so I was just inserting that I guess it was done. And now I'm pregnant. So now I'm definitely done. So through lots of prayers, journaling, conversations, I realized I was actually believing a lie that God was done with me. And I was believing the lie that it was too late for him to do anything in my life. Because it actually wasn't too late. So I started paying attention to the world around me. I started dreaming. I started asking, what would I do if I was going to reinvent myself? Or what would I do if I got to start over? Or what would I do? What would I like to do when I grew up? So I asked God to start helping me pay attention to what he would have me pay attention to. I asked him to start bringing interactions in my life that would move me forward instead of keeping me where I was. And so fast forward to today, I am in school to become a certified leadership coach. I am certified in lots of some of the popular assessments, and I love having the opportunity to help people discover who they were created to be proud of the gifts that God has given them, and to figure out how to use each of those gifts to bring the most honor and glory to God. So that's where, when you asked me about my story, and back to that staff meeting quote, I just realized I was so caught up in this definition of success and where I was in life and what others had been talking about and what others had been saying. And I realized that it wasn't my business to be successful. It was my business to do what was right. And when I did, the rest would lie with God. And it just really resonated with me. So that's a bit of my story.
Right. I know you stayed in your previous role for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, Kristen was the assistant of a pastor of a local church here, a Gwinnett church. who we're also friends with and love. And I know it was for a while. You stayed there for what, 16 years?
Yeah, I worked for Jeff Henderson for 16
Yeah,
years, and then for a few months I worked for Reed Moore. Mhm.
right. So basically, when you started working there, did you already have children?
No, I was newlywed. I was actually a drug rep prior to working for the church. And so I took about a 400% pay cut to go to work at the church. And my mom even made a joke one time of like, oh, well, now what are you going to be doing? I was like, what do you mean now? What am I going to be doing? It wasn't like I was, that was one thing and this is another thing. I mean, it was just a switch to one great job to another great job, but it was an interesting transition for that.
Right. Tell me a little bit about how did you manage your life after having kids? Like, we have a lot of younger girls that are part of
Mhm.
Flourish, and right now they're probably out of college, beginning their career. Um, a lot of them know what they're going to do with their lives. Some of them are not sure, they're still exploring it. Tell us
Mhm.
a little bit about how did you feel called, or was it like a real crystal clear calling when you started working at the church, or it just developed? How did that work for you to change from being a drug rep to a pastor's assistant?
Yeah, that's a great question. Uh, one of the things that gifts that God gave me when I was born was this teachable and coachable heart, and I'm a noticer of things. So throughout my life, I've always noticed when things were starting to connect. And so as I was the drug rep, I noticed that things that what would bring me life and what would kind of just be and things that I just started paying attention to. When do I perk up? When do I walk away and don't even feel tired? A perfect example is one day 2000. I mean, it's 2 o'clock in the morning and I'm, little security unit out there going, can I see your badge? And I wasn't even tired. And I come back from Memphis totally refreshed, totally just alive. And I started paying attention to what was that? What is it that about my offices when I go into them? What makes me love it and what just drains me? So I started paying attention. And that's what I would say is if like with your gifts and calling and that equals success. But if you don't know what your gifts are, as you said, so many of our girls in this community, like some of them know where they're going and some of them are still going like, I don't even know one gift that I have, let alone, you
Right.
know, what my calling is. So I didn't grow up in church. So I didn't even know what it meant to have a calling.
Yeah.
That was foreign to me, but I did just start paying attention to what brought me to life.
Right.
So I've always loved the personality assessments, but then whenever it coupled with my belief in Jesus, which was also new around this time that I got married, I started paying attention to what those things were and kind of figuring out what did I love, what did I hate. Then I just started paying attention. Like I kept asking God, okay, so what now? What now? And I would throw hooks out to, wise people that I was around and would say, like, how did you know what you wanted to do? Or when things would be stirring in me, I'd be like, do I pay attention to this? Or do I just kind of chalk it up for like just keep watching that? And so I got a lot of great advice and through that process and knowing that we can feel like we're failures because we're not sticking to a formula. Our world loves formulas. Our world loves linear growth. Our world loves things that fit in our box. And
Right.
I would love to reframe and challenge people to stop, to think about that quote and to reframe it to go, it's not our business to succeed. Because what if our definition of success is not God's definition of success? I want us to think it's not my business to succeed, but I want to do right. So I want to I love the term. I want to play where my cleats are. I want to grow where I'm planted. I want to do what is right in the moment where I am. So I want to add, as I was transitioning and thinking about that when I was young and newly married and with kids, I had to keep asking all through these years. I've always asked God, what is your right? I've asked, what is right for me right now? Yes, I think you've given me some dreams, and I don't know what those totally are. I can't, it's always been very hard for me to articulate what my dreams were, what my needs were, because of the way I'm wired. And when you work for someone, when you have a spouse, when you have friends and you have allowed their words to mean a lot to you,
Right.
you start paying attention to what's right for them or what's right for me from them right now. And I still challenge myself to say, God, what is your right for me right now in this season
Good.
right now? We've all been called our purpose in life, and we all want to have these big, deep conversations, and I can cut it down to one line. We have all been called to help build the kingdom of God by using our unique gifts.
Right.
We can use them to build the kingdom, we can build our kingdom, or we can not use them at all. But it's our job, I believe, that to know our calling or to lean into our calling, that it's to help build the kingdom of God. And so we pay attention to those gifts.
Right. I love that because let's just have a mentoring moment here. We're all in our 40s, right? I'm about to be 45. And I know that the right thing for us changes, right?
Mhm.
Along your life. And I
Mhm.
love what you said, that success is not our responsibility, but we're supposed to do our right. And God will actually take care of our future. And I think the biggest challenge when we're young is to trust that,
Yeah.
it's to trust that God's going to connect all the dots and put us where we're supposed to be. It takes a lot of humility
Yeah.
to let go of our entitlement of being something. And that's one important message that I always tell mentees or people that I talk about this, is that we are supposed to dream. I
Mhm.
think our calling is a combination of knowing ourselves, like you said. I do think we need to know ourselves, and I don't think it's automatic. But I also believe that our calling depends on the Lord and what He's given us, where He plans for us to be. And
Mhm.
now, in this culture of fame, everybody has
Yeah.
this desire to be famous or be visible. And I think that God has that for some people, but He doesn't for others. But I do think everybody is called to be alive, like you said, and to
Mhm.
be fulfilled and to do right. And that right, I believe, can give us abundant life and
Yep.
make God famous. But I remember, for example, as a mom, I had seasons, and I still probably will have, that my right was to be at home.
Mhm.
And with somebody with my personality, I imagine yours as well, based on your journey, it was very difficult. It was very hard. I actually got married a little later. How was that for you? Getting married and then staying in that job, having 3 kids, one much later than the second one.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit how you managed that season of your life, that you were working, but you were also called to be raising your children.
Yeah. And it was really hard because my husband, his mom was home his entire life. And she would have told you that no, she wasn't. She was working a lot because she had a little part-time job at Riches and here in Atlanta. But he remembered his mom was always home. They never had leftovers, and they always had these amazing meals every single night.
Oh my gosh.
And he wasn't expecting that of me, but I started putting that expectation on myself.
Really?
And then when it would be a little bit hard, um, I would have to work late, or he would have to, on Sundays, it was daddy day. And so we wouldn't get to go to church together. And then we wouldn't get to be, have Sunday brunch together. I mean, that was a rarity. And so I started having this scorecard in my head of, gosh, I must be a less than wife because I'm not doing X, Y, Z. He never one time put that on me, but I was doing it to myself. And then in this world, sometimes we pick up things that people put down and we own them as if they are truths, but they're not truths. So I kept seeing, you and I are so old that we still remember when blogs were like the thing, and there were no vloggers and there were no YouTubers or anything like that. But and all of the mom blogs were talking about, it was either this subject of how to be great at home or how to be great at work. And whichever camp you were in, you felt like you were off somewhere. And it was just hard for me. And so there were definitely times where I would go, like, I would ask Michael, my husband, like, do I need to stay home? Do I want to stay home? And he said, that's not on me to decide. But I just kept looking around. And finally I said, God and I were having one of our conversations. And I just said, God, what I want is that you do with me and my job and my work what you would have me to do. I said, it is always yours. It is surrendered to you. So I will work hard, because I believe he tells us no matter where we are, at home, or working outside of the home, we are always to be working hard. And so I said, God, I'll keep working hard, and you just tell me where you want me to go. And that sounds so easy. It's like you said, like in our 40s, it's a little bit easier to do that. But in our 20s or even our 30s, it's a little bit harder to really sit securely in that. But I believe he answers that prayer. I believe he answers that call for surrender, that cry of surrender, and saying, I have a story for you. I need you to stop comparing your journey to others. I need you to be inspired by others' journeys. So I would be inspired a lot of times by the bloggers on both sides, because I would see like, oh my gosh, that's the coolest thing to do for your kid. And then I would say, and that is the coolest way of growing in your job, and not put these unrealistic expectations on yourself. And so I started being inspired by others' journeys, but I really tried to stop comparing them. I stopped giving them more power than I was giving the word of God. I gave, God, I said, God, you created me and my innermost thoughts and dreams, even though I can't articulate them. You can, and you know what you're doing in me. So I just I want whatever I'm supposed to be doing to come through your hands and not mine. And
Right.
it's like you said, it's way easier said than done, but there are definitely tears and definitely wrestling matches and all of that. But I really do believe he answered that call for me of, God, I'm just surrendering. All of this is through my open hands.
That's awesome. I know that when we get to that point of surrender is when God starts acting in our hearts. And the moment you let go, I don't know, in my life, that's when I started seeing freedom. But obedience is never an option if we want to be in the center of God's calling for us. And I regret nothing, even though my journey was really hard as well, because I think it's really hard not to have guilt when you're dividing your time. But as we said in another video we recorded for Flourish Collective, I I believe God calls us to the same results, but we're not the same people, and the process can look different for everybody. And even in seasons of our lives, like my youngest son, my son, I have only one son and a daughter, but my son is going to kindergarten, and my life is changing a little bit. But my commitment to them is always going to be my priority to my home. I believe in order. I think as women, we need to have our priorities. And I love that these girls that are younger than us are listening to this, because it might sound and seem like a fairy tale, but
Mhm.
it's a hard combination. And I think if you start going and learning yourself earlier, before you're married, and you
Mhm.
start knowing your priorities earlier, the earlier the better. But we also will learn through the journey and sometimes through struggle. And I know God has so much kindness and grace over us. But I love this conversation. And one of the last things I wanted to ask you is, as a leadership coach now, with your experience of working for somebody for 16 years and transitioning now, I know you're director of a whole ministry, several campuses, a lot of employees. Do you have any practical tips for people that want to know themselves a little more and find out more of their gifts? Do you have any tips that you could share with us?
Yes. My first thought is definitely take, I know that there's so many assessments right now that are very, very popular, and they are really good, and they are great tools to be used to help you start to learn things about yourself, so that you can learn. I really thrive in structure. I really thrive when I'm not boxed in. I thrive when I have lots of friends around me. I thrive when I am by myself and nobody knows what's happening with me. But it also gives you opportunities to see where God could move in and stretch. But it's important that the assessments not become the end all be all.
Right.
The end all be all is, God, what would you have me learn from this?
Yeah.
We were all created beautifully and uniquely. And I get really passionate about people being proud of how God created them to be.
Right.
And I would say practical tips are practice being a fan and an encourager of the people around you and the other women around you. Start recognizing the things you admire in them and call it out. And then I think we start with our relationship with God and saying, God, what would you have me know? What would you have me learn? Where would you have me, where are some thoughts that are not consistent with what you want me to believe? Where
Right.
are things that I am locking and loading onto that are not of you, and they are actually holding me back from the race that you've called me to
Right.
run? I love uh, the parable of the talents, where each of the servants, there's one has 5, one has 10, and one has 1. None of them look to each other as to what's happening with them. Like, oh, what are they doing? Like, well, how are they using that?
Mm-hmm.
Their only person that they have to report back to is their master. And so I would challenge each of us to make sure that whatever our talents are, that we're reporting only back to the master, coming back to him and saying, what would you have me learn from this? What would you have me do? What's my next step? There's not a formula. So it's a lot of us like do I have a morning quiet time or an evening quiet time? Journal, no journal. Devotional, no devotional. 5 minutes, 75 minutes. That stop. Just shake off those expectations and just sit in the discomfort and the discipline to just be, and stop trying to fix what God may be trying to tell you is not broken. Stop trying to put God's will in our own little box, in our own little Enneagram world, or our own little working genius world, and say, God, what would you do that only you can do through me? Also, it's really important that we give ourselves a lot of grace and a lot of mercy, because we, if I've been doing this for 46 years, trying to figure this thing called life out. So there's a lot of behaviors that I don't even know about.
Right.
And it's not going to be a light switch. It's not going to be well, I heard Daniele and Kristen talking, so now I'm just going to give it to God and this will all be great. There's going to be a struggle. There's going to be a 2 steps back, 1 step forward kind of thing. And just showing ourselves that mercy and grace to be like, God, you know that I do this. I'm here again. But still with that humble posture of, but you're still working. And my desire is to use and know these gifts to bring the most honor and glory to you, God. And I've just found he always honors that prayer. I want us to not be too concerned about success. What our definition of success is could be wrong. We could be talking to our friends who are movers and shakers, and they're, going all over the world. Well, not right now, but they will be. And we're like, no, I'm kind of content at home. But we feel like we have to say like, yes, I want to go conquer this. But no, let's just sit in the beauty of the gifts that we've been given and celebrate them when they go off to the world. And then when our gift is one of support, we support them, we cheer them on, because it's lonely out in the world also. So I would pray also that God would empower and equip us all to carry on our calling more often than not, to have those little successes each day where we can see the God winks in our life. I love thinking of, and I'll call him out. I'll be like, God, I see you winking at me. But you don't need to worry about success. You need to worry about doing right, and the rest lies with God. And there's incredible, incredible freedom in that. And that he will sustain us through. So that, I would say, those were the practical. Oh, one other is, if you need a coach or if you need to talk to someone, make sure that you're doing so. Make sure you're talking to your mentor, make sure you're talking to someone who could help, that is not going to just tickle your ears and not going to put their agenda onto your world, that they will let you process, hold space for you to ask the questions, to wrestle with these things, to say, I don't want to climb a corporate ladder. Is there something wrong with me? Right. And that they would encourage you, no, there's nothing wrong with you. If you don't want to stay home with your kids, it does not mean you don't love them. It means you are wired a different way than the person who loves every moment. And it doesn't mean that you love your kids any more or any less, whichever one you do. A healthy mom, a healthy woman is one who is fully rested in who God has created her to be, and is comfortable there. And so find a person, a coach or a mentor, a group that can help you sit there and to point you back to Jesus every single time as you're wrestling with this through your world.
That's so true and so awesome. I want to thank you for having this conversation with me and sharing your story and these pieces of gold. I love when you talked about prayer, because I think it's the starting point. If there's one thing I would have done more diligently in my journey to be fully alive in where God wants me to be, would be to be more prayerful. And I pray, girls, for you right now, that you will be women that will realize the importance of prayer and giving to God all of your needs. If you know yourself well, or if you don't know, a lot of us don't know. A lot of women are struggling, not only young women, but like you said, you thought for a season that you were done, but that you're coming to God and you're going to open up about it and trust Him. I love to think about that prayer cause things, and
Yes.
it does. God gave us the opportunity to pray because He wants to answer us, and knowing our calling is something He wants us to know, because He has one for everybody. So thank you, Kristen.
Can I say one real quick thing
Sure.
about that? One thing that, because again, I came to know Jesus late in life, and I thought there was a formula for prayer.
Right.
And one thing that has always, is that I can pray wherever I am. And there's not that AM PM. Yes, there should always be a dedicated time of prayer. But if I'm driving and the Incredibles are on in the back of the car, I can send up some quick prayers, and it is no less, it's not like God's going, oh, I can only listen to you when you're in your chair. I can't, but it's that freedom to go with what works for you. Right. And then be challenged to have the discipline to also have some longer times, but don't miss out on those little times of going, God, what in the world is happening? Because He always will answer.
Yeah, the key is faith. It's like Scripture says, what moves the heart of God is our faith. Do you believe that if you pray and ask God, He will reveal to you? And if you do, you can pray anywhere.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kristen.
You're
I
welcome.
love
Thank
talking
you.
to you. I think this will be incredibly helpful to our Flourish girls. And thank you, girls, for watching us. We hope this is helpful. And continue to watch flourishmentor.com for more resources on calling, but also in our next topics that are coming soon. We love you all. Thank you.